Oops. Are we starting? Do I need to mute?
Zach, we have it muted once again.
What?
It's muted.
Oh,
If there ain't no curve, there ain't no ball. The globe religion about to fall. We're gonna open your eyes so you can see who you're gonna call if you wanna be free. Globebusters! 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 Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Yeah! Globebusters! Globebusters! Globebusters!
And welcome everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS. We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
hello everybody, and welcome to GLOBEBUSTERS Tech. I am your host Zach. Good times for all, and today we'll be talking about the right-hand rule. Now, we're going to go into a couple other things as well. Kyle has a short presentation that he'd like to give, and the right-hand rule isn't going to take that long to cover. It's pretty simple and basic, but it does apply to this place we live. And that's one of those things about how electricity is scalable, electricity and magnetism. And when we're trying to like see how this place works and what is going on and the function of the ether, if you want to call it that. I know some people don't like that word, but this electromagnetic field, the electric field and the magnetic field are always doing this dance around us. And when we put it through a wire, it does the same thing. It's really neat. It's scalable. And today we're going to show you how the right-hand rule applies to nature, as well as just how the right-hand rule itself works. But before we do that, we're going to say hello to the panel. Starting off, we're going to say hello to Miss Karen B. Karen, how are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Good to be here.
Awesome, awesome. How was your week?
It was fantastic. Busy.
Excellent. Busy, busy. I know. Yeah. It's coming up. We're how many days?
I don't know.
Vegas, baby.
60 something.
60 something days away. Yeah. I can't wait. We got our plane tickets today. So we are set.
Yeah, buddy.
Next up, we have Mrs. Cami Nodell. Cami, how are you today, ma'am?
Oh, I am doing good. It's a sentimental day. 5 years ago today, I was looking back and getting the memories that 5 years ago today, we were at the conference in Canada, which was a fabulous, fabulous conference, Flat Earth, and it gets you thinking about how different, things are and how much has changed and progressed in the last 5 years. And so looking back at the pictures and the memories, that was one, Karen, that if I could have had you at one, that would have been it, that you missed, just because what happened at that conference was really special, that we did something called Speaker's House. and a whole bunch of us stayed in the house after the conference. So we had Rob Skiba and Robbie Davidson and my Bob and Matt Long and Patricia Steer at the time and Mark Sargent and the whole group of us that actually got to stay at the houses and talk one-on-one to each other, which the creators, you go channel to channel, and we really don't talk a whole lot to each other unless we do a panel like this together.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets people that weren't up close and personal. That was really, really special. But yeah, the memories that we've gained and how far we've come gives hope, but just because it really has progressed. We did that and it was special. It was a long trip, and the logistics of getting a family in two different cities in a different country, and that we gave up our Hawaii trip that year for the first time since we had been married, because we couldn't manage to do 2 long trips and work and everything in the same year. And that trip always is in Lahaina, and so I'm also doing memories watching Lahaina burn down, and the entire harbor is gone, and Front Street, and all of the different changes, and how much change an afternoon can make. An afternoon changed everything on Maui. The island will never be the same. For those of you just joining us, this is our GLOBEBUSTERS Tech Show. It's a little bit different than our prime time. It is not a replacement to it, is in addition to it. So thank you for joining us. It's a little bit nerdier and techier, and we dive down deep. We also have something new this week. We have members for the first time. Everybody has been asking us about members. And the one thing that is going on right now is since my husband passed, I am forced to learn a lot of things and do a lot of different things that I've never done before. And it's learning how to do things when your brain is broken. So it's taken me a while. Karen, thank you for helping me with that. But we do have members set up. We want to tweak it a little bit. I had a question for you. On the members, there's the little blue stars.
Mm-hmm.
Can that be like the little GLOBEBUSTERS logo next to the names, or is that too small, like the emoji thing? Is that too small to really do in that spot? It's probably not the time to ask, but I'm just curious about it.
No, you can make it whatever you want. That's what I was saying. We could customize it, but I just had it generic just to get it started.
So, well, excellent. So that will be probably changing to the little thing, because I'd love to see little GLOBEBUSTERS next to everybody, but it's just another way for those who have been asking to support the show. So thank you for anybody that wants to become a member. And if we get enough members, and that we'll have some like members only chats or discussions and that every few months and things like that. But again, it's just a way to get going. And I'm learning as I'm doing it along the way. So please have patience with me. And with that, let me throw it back to you, Zach, because that was a long intro on my part.
It'd be cool to involve the members a lot more and
right
in conversations. It kind of like a lot of other people like to really put the called the super chats and read off those kind of comments. But if we have members, maybe we could try and make more of an effort to read off more of their comments.
Exactly, and act with them more and get some more Q&A going. I would love that.
Get more interactions, particularly with the members. Kind of. Yeah.
And if you're looking for different perks or different ideas, people look at them and go ahead and suggest. I'm looking at it and looking at ways to make it better.
Sounds good.
Okay, so since Kyle, you spoke up, we will come to you next. Mr. Kyle Adams, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Yeah, trying to milk that last bit of summer vacation. We got back to school season going on right now. We got kids are going back to school next week, so things have been a little busy over here. But yeah, it's been doing all kinds of research on all kinds of stuff, and yeah, it's just all a matter of getting the time to sit down and do the recording.
I always hated going back to school shopping. I hated going and trying on clothes and this and that. It was just, I don't know. I mean, once I hit like 14, 15, then it was like, yeah, let's go get some new threads. But I mean, I wore sweatpants up until like 6th grade. That's all I ever wore. I had like, 10 pairs of sweatpants, and that's what I wore all through elementary school. I was a creature of comfort. I hated going back to school shopping.
Yeah, I'm also trying to get involved in some online classes as well, so I can kind of take my family history skills to the next level and really, do things that, like, I've got a bunch of skills already as it is, but I really want to go farther and help more people when it comes to kind of figuring out their history, especially when it comes to flat Earth history. It's really, really important. So I'd like to see what I can do with that. And so I'm trying to get involved in some online classes to take me there.
Awesome. All righty. Well, last but never the least, we have Skylar from the Troubling Tribunes channel. Skylar, how are you doing this afternoon, sir?
Doing fantastic. We've had an absolutely loaded down week in the background, but looking forward to cranking out some more content here for you guys soon, including the True Earth debates. We've been doing more on the TikTok side, so hopefully the algorithm will smile upon me and bring us even more diverse cast, which is always fun. You guys know how that goes. Other than that, of course, what was it? Got the GLOBEBUSTERS here with you guys, which is always a good time. Yeah, the right hand rule. This one is really interesting. My first time actually hearing about it directly, even though I probably could have stumbled across it before. Memory's not great on all the little details and stuff. So it's always great to do these little refresher courses. And with that, it's like not only is it showing up in magnetism, but it's showing up all over nature as well. It's almost as if electricity and magnetism are like an intrinsic part of reality. Who knows?
Yeah, Cammy wanted me to play. I didn't bring it up, but it's Walter Lewin
I love that.
explaining just how much electricity and magnetism have to do with the world around you, and you sensing the world around you for that matter. I mean, it can, like every single thing that takes place, a muscle contraction, you looking and seeing things, you breathing, everything, the blood pumping through your veins, it all has to do with electricity and magnetism, all of this stuff. And
You
that's, I
can't
mean, the
see, you can't
wind.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great
Forces.
little.
And I asked for it and you didn't get it because I mean I could find it and bring it up for you while you're doing other things. It's so good. You did such a nice job on that.
I know, but I get struck every time I play all that kind of stuff. That's why I don't do it anymore.
I don't care. It's so important to share that we'll just take the strike and members will help support us, and that's how it goes.
All right. Well, to start off, we're going to have Kyle let us know what's been going on with these scientific journals and papers,
Okay.
things of this sort.
All right. Well, for the past year or so, I've been, it's getting close to about a year now. I've been doing at war with this, what I call the articles of ignorance, the big mainstream science claims that science never proves anything. And that's just kind of been my personal vendetta. I've been just constantly at it. And I finally got that one article taken down by the Journal of College Science Teaching, where they claimed that words like prove, correct, and true should be removed from a vocabulary completely and immediately. That was their whole claim. And so I was like, okay, well, now that one's taken down, I'm going to try and see if I can kind of influence any of these other articles out there to get them retired as well. And so I started looking at this article from Haverford University. Let me screen share that and screen share. Let's just do entire. Okay. Hopefully you can see this. Okay, so this is the article from Haverford University, and I was kind of looking for anything like golden moments in there that could help me. And it's kind of a short article, as you can see. But in the article, there was interesting part that kind of stood out to me. That was kind of my golden moment there. And that was where they talked up this article from cracked.com, and it was claiming, it was particularly about like mainstream scientific journals. And so it's 6 reasons why you can't trust science anymore. And that's from Cracked. And so I was kind of looking over that. And so while this article from Haverford University, there's a whole lot I disagree with that, I agree with them on this one topic. And I think this article from Cracked is pretty good. And so 6 reasons why we can't trust science anymore. Okay. Number 6, negative results are ignored. And they go into further details on that. If you want to talk about anything, by all means, interrupt me, and we could stop and expound on anything that catches your mind. So, negative results are ignored. Sadly, the majority of
Well,
papers continue.
real quick,
Uh-huh.
Kyle, on the whole negatives results are ignored. This is nothing new.
Yeah,
They've
it's
been
nothing new.
doing this for well over 100 years now. Um, who was his name? John Bradley. He was a Royal Observatory. He was a Royal Observatory guy, the head of the Royal Observatory in 1820s, late 1820s, early 1830s, somewhere right around there. And he discovered stellar aberration, where the stars seem like they're moving a little bit compared to other stars every year, and then all of a sudden they move back to their original point. Well, when they move back, instead of marking it a negative, 8 or a -6, whatever it was, they just mark it as a 0 and consider that a null result. So
Yeah.
yeah, they've been doing this forever. Even today, NASA, well, it's probably not in there anymore today. I know once Jaron talked about it, I couldn't find it anymore on there, but they used to have a big, huge, um, like library about James Bradley himself. And now you might find 1 or 2 articles, but in there it even says that that's how they do it today. They mark all the negatives as a 0, and then in the ledger you put the actual measurement,
Uh-huh.
but it's not for official use.
Yeah. So here they're just saying that it's a incredibly common practice called publication bias. And like trained mice, some scientists have adapted with it. I think it's called facking or p-hacking. I don't know. And that's kind of where you kind of do the same thing over and over again until you get just the right results. And then that's all you talk about is just those results. And then you ignore all of the failed experiments. Like, if 1 out of 100 times this thing happens, well, you forget the 99 and just say, oh, well, studies now say that this happens over, 1 out of 100 times. And so it's kind of like saying, if out of 100 mice, 1 of those mice doesn't like cheese, studies now say that mice don't like cheese. That's kind of what they're doing. It's very dishonest. And that's actually what the article from Haverford was saying, that this is just an incredibly dishonest practice, but it takes place in scientific journals. And they kind of go on to, and I think it's one of the other ones that they mentioned here, scientists don't have to show their work. And so one of the things that for me, when it comes to building credibility in a scientific journal, is being able to go back and retrace their steps and see exactly all of the steps that they got to that led them to their conclusion. But continuously we just see, oh, well, these scientists came to this conclusion, and they kind of tell a nice little story about that, and then they just leave you guessing, and it's all just a big appeal to authority.
And it's so true that this extends beyond science. Today I was actually watching this documentary on the fastest typers in history, and Guinness World Book of Records didn't need any evidence or proof or anything. They got a call from a guy. It was a phone call, and said, "Oh, this lady types 170 words a minute." And she did 212 for up to this, blah, blah, blah. And she got the world record for being the fastest typer over a phone call. Never had to show anything,
Oh my
never
goodness.
took a test, never did anything. And I used to believe all those Guinness World Book of Records, like, oh, I want to be in
Yeah.
this one day for something. Yeah, it's
That
in the phone
really
call.
hurts the credibility. Just a phone
Yeah.
call. Yeah. And so that's what we're trying to do as, as flat earthers, is we're trying to take things to the next level. And where's your scientific journals? I'm like, why should I trust those scientific journals just because they say, just because they claim something, unless I can find the observations? And that's kind of one thing that I've really noticed a lot of, is a lot of people they prefer text over being able to see it like pictures. I'm like, where's all the pictures of your thing? And so I was just talking about this with mouse studies, for example. And so if they want to describe the genetics of a mouse, okay, well, let's see the pictures of the parent mice and let's see the pictures of the offspring. And if we want to find out which genetic trait is more dominant, I think having pictures that actually show the mice is a lot more authoritative than showing no pictures at all and just writing it in text. Yeah, and so that's kind of what we see a lot of, in especially when it comes to videos. Oh, you're just going to try and prove something with a YouTube video, right? And it's like, you'd rather just read about it in text. Like, that's just kind of silly.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
come from the show me state at heart. I want to see
Yeah.
it. And not only do I want to just see it, I want to then test it myself. You know, that's the one thing when I saw Walter Lewin doing all his stuff with all these different types of electrostatic, you know, generator devices. The first thing I did was I went and got the first one I saw. I was like, okay, I'm going to test this and see, because I didn't believe it. It was like, come on, it can't move that much just by me rubbing a piece of glass with some silk. I can
Yeah.
move that balloon around that much and just make it like scared of this thing. And sure enough, it happens.
And which is more powerful, to actually see
Oh,
it for yourself,
so much,
to see
yeah.
it actually levitating, or would you just be satisfied and just typing it in text and saying, I caused this thing to levitate? Is it really more powerful in text? Because that's the way a lot of those globe earthers like to treat it. Oh, well, it's good enough in text as long as it's in a peer-reviewed journal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we just see that over and over again. It's just kind of crazy.
That's actually been carefully done, because it wasn't always that way. The idea of it was that, well, we can rely on the text because behind the text, when we go back and check, there's always documentation of an experiment that you can go back and do. So it's like, yeah, with the words, you can actually really pick through and make sure that you fully understand what's being communicated. But then you should also have the visuals. And now we're just finding that there's no connection to any visuals. And sometimes, like, even when it comes to the jibby jabs, this one was really funny how their insert sheets don't connect you to any experiment titles or dates for you to actually check the data on.
Yeah, it's all about checking that work and verifying things for yourself. And so if you want to go back and retrace your steps, that's how you build that relationship of trust. And without it, you're just kind of like, really? Yeah. Karen, you're kind of quiet over there. You got anything?
Karen and I are both
No.
playing in this, setting up the chat and the memberships and that. The memberships, there are gifted memberships in the chat. If you're in the chat, allow for gifts from channel, I guess what it is. And then do you click on where you see the gifted memberships to claim them, or how do you claim the gifts?
Well, it should say allow gift, and then it should just hand it out to the first 5 people who aren't a member who, I guess, click on it. I'm not sure.
I don't know if you click on it or if it just distributes it, but I know that there are gifted memberships. Thank you, Karen.
So
Thank you, Justin,
Yeah, I
to
just
claim in the
didn't.
chat.
it usually
Yeah.
goes to whoever's most active in the chat. So if you're active in there and you're not a member already and you have allowed the gifts, then it will probably pop up for you. But it's a new system, so.
Yeah. So number 4 here is you have to pay to get published. And so I like their example here about how it's like having an actor or he has to pay money in order to be in a movie. And it's just ridiculousness.
Yeah, have you ever heard of what was that called? Who's Who
Who's Who?
among
I
high
guess-
school American students? It was a high school thing. They went around to each high school, and if you had the grades and you were willing to pay, you know, $75 or whatever it was,
It's like
you
paying
got to
for good
be,
grades.
yes, you got to be put in the Who's Who yearly.
But everybody could.
book.
I mean, everybody got the There was no really who's to it. It was brilliant on their part. Yeah, you're a who's who. Just pay this $75 fee, and your name can be in our book.
Yeah.
Brilliant marketing.
Look, it's not
Yeah.
discrimination against poor people at all. Anybody can pay the money to be recognized as one of the specials.
Right, and be somebody. Be who's who. Come on.
Yeah. The next point that they brought up is it's all about profit. And I really like this kind of seeing the amount of profit for
Blasphemy.
each of these different companies. And so 37% profit for these scholarly publishing companies. And yeah. And so a lot of that kind of gets into play there. It's not about, they're not trying to publish information just because it's right. They're trying to publish information so they can get their journal more attention and so they can make more money off of it. And so they got to play to the audience in that way. And so they're trying to just kind of, when it comes to religion, we call that kind of a dirty preacher, when he just tells the audience everything they want to hear, but never teaches them any of the things that they don't want to hear. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then after that, they talk about how no one can share their work. And so if you go and publish a paper, and then after you've got your work published in a peer-reviewed journal, then you no longer have the rights to that work anymore. Now it's their work. And so if you wanted to say, oh, well, I wrote this big paper here, I can't share it with you anymore now. And now it's theirs. So you've got to go through them and they have to pay for it. And yeah. And so they kind of got it totally locked down.
Question. Isn't it also true that you can pay the money? The journal says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and publish this. They buy the rights to it, basically, or however that works. And then they're just like, oh, you know what? This is actually pretty damaging to whatever the heck, or we have a certain agenda that we want to keep. So we're going to go ahead and not publish this. And now it'll never see the light of day.
Yeah, and that happens. That totally happens, where you just present something, if you're to present a peer-reviewed journal article just about the oil industry and fossil fuels really aren't made out of fossils, kind of a claim like that, all of a sudden you get a lot of the big oil industries, I don't like what you're saying there. And so they're not going to want to publish it. Yeah, a lot of those great, mind-blowing revelations end up just kind of getting swept under the rug for the sake of profits.
Wait a second. You mean we could make oil in about every 2 weeks?
Big shout out to Robert Zafaris over on Rockfin for the $20 super chat. Didn't leave a message, just gave the super chat. Thank you so much, Robert. Much appreciated.
So yeah, our last one here, number one is predatory companies can publish sham science. And so their big famous example is excellent news. Chocolate can help you lose weight. And that's their claim. And they published this peer-reviewed journal article, which is totally bogus. And there's been numerous peer-reviewed public articles that have made claims like this.
I thought you were about to say relativity.
Yeah, that should be one of them. So,
well, wasn't it Bill Gates who said he loved statistics? Because with statistics, a scientist can tell you pretty much anything you want to hear if they just put it in a statistical form, because it could be a minority, but if you word it correctly, that minority can then become the majority of a much smaller group. And yeah, it's amazing how you can manipulate things with wording and statistics and scientists use this all the time in their journals to sell a product. It's advertising is what it is anymore. Scientific journals are advertising for tech companies and, the pharmaceutical companies.
A great evidence or a great example of that would be there's no evidence that autism is linked to anything harmful in the medical field.
Yeah, just time and time again. And so
now, yeah, something on that too with the studies and the way of doing statistics, something I came across, and I think it's telling that technology has gone so far forward, and yet this search has gone back. But in the 90s on the internet and in the early 2000s on the internet, you could search news, and you could actually just on the search look at all the different papers and that and go into the news stories. And when you clicked into an online news story and they were giving these studies, you could click and you could go into the study and look at it. And I actually wrote letters on several of the studies. And what I found on some of the things that they were talking about, and it happens to be in the direction you're talking about, troubling, but we won't go there on YouTube. It's not a topic for that. This topic is just on the statistics that I was looking at statistics and compiling statistics. And some of the things I found that was for a statistic that said that, and the statistic was, and it was out all over in all of the countries in the 90s or that, because it was a big headline. So Australia picked it up, people did. It was like 25% of American girls 14 to 17 have sexually transmitted diseases. And this is because they were getting ready to push the Gardasil or the different vaccines. This is probably another thing on there, but they did put out these studies, and it was with the numbers, and it was rounded, and it was like 23 point something and rounded up or that. But when you went into the studies, the way they did the study was they tested for four different things. I think they tested for chlamydia. They tested for four different diseases. And when they tested the batch, so let's say you tested 100 girls, you would notice, and you test them for four things, you would notice that somebody that tested positive for one would test positive a lot of the times for multiples. So number one, keep in mind that they tested each person for four things. Number two, they did the study out of a Planned Parenthood in Washington, D.C., which was quite an interesting pool because they took a heavily prostituted and a Planned Parenthood, which is giving you statistics for girls that are sexually active because they're at a Planned Parenthood. So to get the headlines that this percentage of women are sexually active or girls are and have, in other words, it's a very highly misleading correlation to the study because you have a study that's taken among girls like that. Then what they did with the things is if put it like this, let's say that one girl tested positive for all three or for 3 out of 4, and the rest of the girls did not test positive for anything. That result, the way they compiled it, would have been 75% of the girls because you had the 3 different positive results. In other words, the math that was done on it was very interesting. Then another thing that they did was they left out other components on it that I thought were interested, that they collected data, but the data they collected, they did not compile it into results, which I found really fascinating, to take data and not compile it. And when I compiled it, it turned out very, very interesting. I wrote a letter and I made some phone calls on the data that was not compiled, and they said it was on their study non-data significant stuff. They said it was like having your middle name or something. They were collecting it for data purposes, not for study purposes. And it's like, so you're collecting this type of information about somebody and like a blood type or a different thing like that, and yet you're not putting any of that into your studies because we just collected it for the heck of it. So when looking at the studies, I found it really excellent to go into the studies, actually recompile the numbers, look at how the statistics fell down and break them down. And again, look at all of the information they gathered and see what they chose to put in and out of it. And yet now on our articles, we cannot click in and out and get to the studies. It's just the headlines, and they don't back them up anymore with the studies. And why would that be now? Why is it now that before in the 90s and the early 2000s, you could click into it and click into the study, and now you have to somehow search, find it, and get it? I find no reason but deception for that.
Yeah, they can continually cook the results, and so when they don't show their work, and then they
Right.
just say 4 out of 5 American girls have these kind of
Right.
descriptions, then that's a massive trust issue there.
Right.
Yeah,
So
major
again,
problem.
major problems with it. So yeah, I find it interesting that even with the studies, you see how it can be manipulated. But I used to go into the studies and see again the way the manipulation was done was Very clever. And again, that's nice. You don't like this, we'll just leave that piece of information out of the study entirely.
There's a show called Adam Ruins Everything, and he talked about peer-reviewed journals once, and he even went and said, hey, we went and just for fun, we went and found a peer-reviewed journal and published the entire script of this episode as part of a peer-reviewed journal article. And they're just kind of goofing around and just pointing out exactly how corrupt the system is.
Mhm.
It's not like any kind of, just because it's written in a peer-reviewed journal doesn't make it true.
Right.
Yeah, all the scientific facts are so obvious, and you could take it to the bank, and these people would never lie to us. They don't have any agendas at all, and there's no profit to be made.
They don't care. They don't care with the money involved, and it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, it's just another magazine. That's really it is, and likes to talk about kind of scientific stuff, whether that scientific stuff is right or wrong. Yeah, it's still kind of ridiculous to me, just how you have to pay to have your work published, and yeah, you don't get paid anything for it. You're just doing that, and the big reward is, hey, I've got something published in a peer-reviewed journal article. Now
And if you go against the status quo, even if you have the money, it's really hard to get published in a lot of the journals as well. I know there were some physicists from India who had a different proposition for how the universe started. They said it couldn't have been the Big Bang. That doesn't make sense. We're putting forth this idea. And they couldn't get peer reviewed, and then they couldn't get published because nobody would peer review their stuff. And then they couldn't be peer reviewed by other people because they couldn't be published. And they were like, hey, we're not trying to say the earth is flat or anything.
Imagine if they were,
Yeah, we just came out and said, this, which you have no proof for at all. We're just putting forth a new idea, and we have, some reasons why, and we wanted to share it. They couldn't get published anywhere. Yeah. It's crazy. If you don't toe the line, it's really hard to get published in a lot of these journals.
Yeah,
money or
peer-reviewed
no
journals
money.
just aren't what they're cracked up to be, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it's better, in my view, to actually make a video and show the process of what you're doing and kind of explaining things in depth. That's how we are able to build that relationship of trust with who we need. That's the amount of background knowledge that we are able to provide for it. That's what makes it authoritative content. It's not who says it. It's the quality of the content that is being produced, be it in text, or be it just in voice, or even better with video. And I think video is by far superior to the other formats, even though video itself can be faked. And we've seen that time and time again with NASA. But even with that, we're still able to kind of, they just do a bad job of faking it really bad. And so we're able to call them out on it all the time. And so that's kind of what we can expect with in any other study that we do it with video, is people to call us out on it. You know what I mean? And kind of look for different ways that something could be faked.
We're actually living in a very special time right now, in which the internet has become so widely available to everybody that we are seeing the emergence of a new peer review system, one that is actually more akin to what probably the original founders of science had in mind, where people were actually transparently doing experiments that can be copied and actually peer reviewed. We are all peers. We can all check each other's work, repeat experiments, and anybody watching this is supposed to be able to do the same. And that's kind of what's been the big emergence of the True Earth movement, because when people actually go out and do the hands-on terrestrial experiments, you'll see that it doesn't line up with what we were taught in school. And then this is a prime example of peer review and the scientific process at work.
I think I really like that about what you're saying with the peer, putting the peer in peer review. And that's what we do when it comes to all the different laser experiments that we do out there. We see that continually happen. And so when we did our December Flat Earth meetup out in Salt Lake, we went, or it was close to that area, we went over to Utah Lake, and we're trying to do our own laser experiments over there to compare it with the other existing results. And when we have this huge coordinated effort with multiple people kind of observing similar things, that's what makes it authoritative content.
Well said. All right. So to cover that all up, scientific journals, I don't know if they ever were credible or legitimate. I mean, I used to love National Geographic, and I learned about the lemmings and how they all used to commit suicide and jump off cliffs, and this and that. And then you find out, hey, that was just a bunch of people chasing them off the cliff. They don't actually do that
Ruthless.
in reality. Yeah, I was like, what? When I
Trying to
got
tell a
older
story,
and
yeah.
discovered, yeah, it's so much of it is just telling a story to grab people's attention.
Yeah,
And
that's the problem with the whole for-profit industry out there. Yeah.
It's even a problem within our community. There's somebody revving an engine in the background and waiting for this motorcycle to pass. But even within, I try to catch myself doing it, and it's almost something to be natural. But there's a difference in science and theoretical science, and then there's a full art theory. I'm going to separate them like this, and
The
this is
difference
just
would
my.
be that one is science and one is pseudoscience.
One is science and one is pseudoscience, and then I'm trying to bring in another level of it and have a distinctive other level of it. And so one of them, science, things that you can repeat, that you can test, that you can try, and it's true in its rule in nature. Something like the Faraday effect, something like the right hand rule, something like, again, these laws that we observe that are repeatable, testable. We observe the laws happening. We use it in engineering. It's very practical. It's there, it's strong. Your next one is your what they call theoretical, and what they do in their theoretical physics, and this is where I'm trying to be a little bit different, is they come up with theories on how it could work. Well, when they do scientific journals and any of the papers and things that you read, really they don't present the difference between things on how it could work and how it does work any differently. So if that makes sense, that's like a pet peeve that, like Zach says, you watch something and they show that the lemons do this. I read an article about they found X's in the rock in Colorado in the foothills. And they came up with an article in a scientific journal on it that it was made because the dinosaurs were having a sex mating dance. And and making these scratches, and now these are fossils and they're archaeological finds of these scratches, and these little X's are the mating dance from the dinosaurs.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
okay, so you have that little branch that to me I just call completely silly on doing these scratches on the thing. So that type of theoretical science that's silly. You have in their astrophysics or whatever doing it, we'll do like redshift, blue shift, right? You have something that is a real phenomenon that can be affected by speed. In other words, it traveling and coming back will cause a shift effect, and that's real. And we can test the speed by Doppler, right? But that is like one of 30 known causes of a redshift. You can also do it with a prism, with a crystal, with a magnet, with, in other words, this is an optical effects. You can induce it chemically, you can induce it. There are many different
I like
ways.
the filtration effect that they never ever take into account.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're presenting it as a fact that redshift is Doppler when redshift is not, in other words, it could be Doppler. It's a possibility it's Doppler, but not a probability when you look at all the other possibilities of it. And so they present that as a fact, and yet things like that are tricky because, yeah, you can read redshift as Doppler, but it's one of 30 options. In other words, you pick like most recipes, there's different ways to get to the same result. And it doesn't mean that redshift is the way it's happening. It means that it's one of the possibilities they choose from. So you have like different theoreticals where they pick pieces like that. You have the theoreticals where they just make shit up that they need to fill in the pieces, like dark matter, dark energy. Again, little pieces like that that are just complete nonsense because you're making up things. You're making things out of nothing because you don't know what it is and putting a name to it. But then they're giving it the qualities they need in the name, and yet there's nothing to that at all, except for them saying we don't know what it is, but we need the rest of our stuff doesn't account for it. We need to account for 97% of the stuff. So here we have to call that. That's a bizarre.
That's the whole dark matter, dark energy thing,
That's
right?
right, but that's a different type of thing than like putting in the redshift. In other words, there's all different nuances with it. And then there's even like with what we're doing with flat Earth and what I'm trying to do with when you see with how it can work. I'm just trying to introduce possibilities on things that you can't, like when we talked about how things fall down and everything. That was easy because all of the pieces that we had were there that create the downward vector, the density, the buoyancy. When you put things together, you're just recognizing things. So we didn't create, when doing that, we created nothing. We didn't do that. We just said in nature, these effects are here. They all have the rules to them. And if you apply them and put them together, everything that you're looking for is there. There was no need to create anything. We don't even need to look for it. We can measure the volts per meter. We can measure all of these different things and test them, and we see that they're there, right? That framework is there. We don't know where the framework came from. We didn't create the framework, but it's there and we're testing it, as opposed to like some of the other things when you start doing into like infinite earth or again at rising or doing all kinds of different things. You're working with framework that's not there and projecting and saying this is a possibility, but you're creating all of the different pieces. In other words, it's different from saying the possibility when all the framework is there. Is this making any sense at all, or wondering off and too much of a thing on it? On the again, it's
Well,
just
yeah, let's
talking about the
let's
different
get
sciences.
into
Let's get it back in.
yeah, we're gonna take a look at the right-hand rule now. And it was figured out by a gentleman, Ampere, that when you have electricity flowing, that a magnetic field is created. And here's a little demo. I love little demonstrations like this. Now you'll notice this one, there is been reversed. So just it happens. It's happened to my magnet or my compasses as well. When you play with magnets and compasses, it's very possible. But yeah, check this out. This is neat.
Okay, this is a demonstration of Ampere's law.
Are you guys hearing that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all righty.
A current creates a magnetic field. Okay, so first of all, over here to the left, I've got my potential difference. That's my transformer, like so. I then have it hooked up to this simple circuit, which really consists of nothing more than this wire. Okay, a portion of this circuit here is this L-shaped gold wire that you can see. And then on the platform there, it's a plastic platform. I have a couple of different compasses. Right now, all of the compasses here are lining up roughly with the north-south magnetic field associated with the Earth that is present here in the classroom. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and turn on the current here. I'm going to turn on the conventional current. And when I do, a force is going to be exerted upon each individual compass needle. Like so. And then if you look at the geometry here carefully, once all of the compass needles settle down,
Wow, I think
what you will
that's a
see
movement.
is that all the compasses here, the compass needles, are now tracing out a circle. They're tracing out a circle that is centered on the current carrying wire. So a moving electrical charge, that is a conventional current, for example, creates a magnetic field. This is the source of all magnetic fields. This is a simple demonstration of Ampere's law.
Now, by looking at this, you can even tell which, well, I don't know. You'd have to know if all the magnets were correct or not, but you could tell which way that the current was flowing. It appears to me that it's flowing from this end. This is the one that's getting the high potential, and this one here is connected to the low potential. And I see the North Pole pointed this way, going around in that circle. So if you had your hand and you pointed it along that rod on the TV right there, then your fingers curling this way would point the direction that the magnetic field would curl around. Now, even if it was going the other way, I mean, it would still look like it was in a circle. So you would really need to know how those compasses are aligned, whether or not, you know, they're 4 of them are off and 1 is on, or 4 of them are correct and 1 is off.
So is this right hand rule depending upon the direction of the current? Is that what you're talking about? And
Yes.
so if it's going, the current is going from north to south, then it's going to be one direction. But if it goes from south to north, then it's go in the other direction.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, here, I'll show you. This one, we'll get into it a little bit more. Some better visuals right here to show you exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a minute 17. Who is this? Metal, M-E-T-A capital L. What is the right hand grip rule? Now, they do have the left hand rule and this and that and all these other things when you start talking about the direction of which way the electrons are flowing, you know, the low potential. And I know they like to say this, but low potential does not go to high potential. When high potential travels over, say this is the high potential, like this, and it's traveling to the low potential, as this gets weaker and weaker, the low potential over here isn't like it's coming this way and replacing this and making it a lower potential. That's like saying when you're pouring something out of a pitcher into a cup, the empty in the cup went into the pitcher. Does that make any sense? Do we ever look at it that way? Like if you have a pitcher of water and you're filling up a cup of water, now that you've taken the high potential in here because there was more water and you poured it into the empty cup, which was low potential, and you now this gave this more potential, did the low potential in here travel up and into? No, it didn't do that. The air just filled in the empty space. It wasn't like the empty air in the cup traveled up the water and into that container, the pitcher, and then filled up the empty space with that air. That's kind of what they're saying when they're talking about electricity. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just to confuse us or whatnot, but there is a left-hand rule. It has to do with electron flow. And in nature, I don't deal with electrons flowing from low potential to high potential. That's just nonsensical.
So in your setup there, when you had all the compasses around the rod that was having the electric current go through it, were the compasses, they're not pointing at the current itself. It's not pointing at the
No.
source of the you've got with the current, you're getting a magnetic field, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
As
so
the
it's
current
interesting
flows
that the
through the
compasses,
wire.
okay, so the compasses themselves are not pointing to the middle of that electromagnetic field. Is that what you're saying?
No. Yeah, exactly. No, they're flowing along with the field.
So with our magnetic compasses, when it comes to just typical outside without these kind of parameters going on, they don't necessarily point at the north magnetic field. They just follow the magnetic field.
They follow the lines of flux. They follow the lines of flux. That's the whole thing with magnetic declination.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost the closer you get, like when you're right in the center of one of the clover leaves you have right here. If you're right in the center moving up, the closer you get to it, the further off it becomes.
Deviates. So it's a pressure mediation. So they deviate and they will go off a certain percentage depending on, you know, where they are in the pattern, and they will follow that pattern. So yeah. Zach, when he talked about having to test your compasses and everything, he says that with good faith and good lots of training on it. If I hold up here, you'll notice that I have a whole bag of the exact same magnets that they're using. You buy them in grouped to work with in little bags, 10 and 25 at a time. and you do need to check them and make sure that they don't get off because they're not very expensive. They're like experimental things. So you do always want to check your compasses, and there are compass testers and magnet testers. So it's really well done.
Okay. So in your example with your setup, all of the compasses are perpendicular to the flow of electricity, correct? Yeah, those are all perpendicular, and you've got a vertical magnetic field with that.
Vertical magnetic. Well, yeah, the magnetic field is running around this whole wire. Think of it as having a big piece of rubber around it. And the magnetic field would be that rubber going around it in a circle like this.
This
Like here's your
on this
wire.
particular.
It's twisting.
Yeah.
So it's
So
not
it's
just
actually flowing this way. It's not flowing this way at all.
yeah.
It's flowing around it this way.
The electricity
Interesting.
is going
Okay.
up and down. In other words, your electricity is going to take your 90-degree vector from this one and go up and down. In other words, electricity and magnetics are different sides of the same coin, really. That's how they explain them well. I mean, best on it. So you're going to do your current, your wire, and your electric field is going to be that 90 degrees that's perpendicular with the other ones running around.
Normally, when I see this, like a illustration of an magnetic field, I see more of a fountain kind of a shape, and so it's kind of going up and around and kind of doing like an egg shape with it, kind of the toroidal field, I guess. It kind of
Right, you can
goes down the
fill it in with the
middle.
pressure mediation.
Yeah, and so it kind of goes kind of a fountain shape on both sides, I guess you could say. But with this one,
And that's a dipole. So if that would be the pattern of a dipole. If you change your different configurations, you'll get different patterns on what you're looking at. But yeah, that swooshing and going around is a classic dipole look that you're
but
looking
I've
at.
never ever seen any of those illustrations that depict it as twirling at the same time while it's doing this whole motion.
They isolate us. I mean, when they teach us, it was a lot. I had to Bob went over the electrics with me so many times, and I played with magnets for so many years. They really isolate it and make it hard for you to learn intuitively because they teach you, Kyle, that like magnetics is just that ferrosticky action. You're not looking at it, and then you look at the pressure mediation pattern that it will drop in that your compass reacts to, and you do the different pieces, but they don't link them in. Very few people even link it until you get high up in physics. Do they link it? It's the other side of electricity until you get up to Faraday and the different things. They keep them unlinked, and they keep us as stupid as we could really be on it. I mean, that is part of the clue in it is for as much use as magnets have in technology and where we're using them in all applied sciences, and that they really keep us as
in the dark
on a mainstream level as much as a sticky toy mentality as they can, and don't bother going there with your mind. It's just it's what you stick on the refrigerator.
Yeah. So with your compasses, I'm kind of seeing a cross section where we're kind of seeing a two-dimensional plane in the middle of this vertical electromagnetic field. I want to understand if I'm understanding all of this correctly. So yeah, you've got the two-dimensional plane in the middle of this three-dimensional electromagnetic field, and the whole right-hand rule, the compass is not pointing at the center of the rod, but kind of pointing to the right here. Is it to the right?
Right or left, depending on what direction you're, and that's where you change over. Yeah, that's
and that tells you it's
it goes red or blue.
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
Wouldn't that
Hope you muted up, Kyle.
Kyle, you're gone.
You hit mute there. You didn't finish your last sentence. Yeah.
Sorry. But on your rod here underneath the hand, you see the circles twisting, and so that's kind of an unusual perspective that I don't normally see when it comes to this kind of stuff, because normally I always just see the linear lines kind of fountaining outward, but not like this. This is unusual. This is all new to me.
No, that's funny because I always thought just like with the fingers, and I made the fingers those little circles they're doing with the arrows. To me, the little circles with the arrows on them are just on all of the diagrams of the right hand rule, and they're showing what the fingers do or those motions, and what the thumb does is that motion. And so I'm just used to seeing it with the arrows over it. I kind of like it that they brought it out underneath it just to clarify it, because again, with the diagrams and that, we all look at it differently, and it's amazing what we take out of it.
Oh,
And
here,
again,
yeah,
they
let's
keep
play
it
this
very,
video and
yeah.
we'll let them, because I saw this one and I was like, wow, that's a really, I love the little demonstrate or the just little pictures that here, you'll see. It's only a minute, 15 seconds. Check this out.
The right-hand grip rule is a common mnemonic to understand orientation of electromagnetic field in three-dimensional space with respect to a current-carrying conductor, like a wire. When electricity or conventional current flows in a long straight wire, it creates a circular or cylindrical magnetic field around the wire. The right-hand grip rule can help determine the direction of the magnetic flux lines associated with the magnetic field. Let's see this. An electric current passes through the straight wire. When the thumb is pointed in the direction of the conventional current flow, the curled fingers will then point in the direction of the magnetic flux lines around the current-carrying conductor. And now, let us reverse the direction of the current and apply the right-hand grip rule. This principle can help when designing motors, generators, and majority of electrical moving coil instruments.
So the thumb is pointing in the direction that the current is flowing there.
Current
So
flow.
you can get the concept of it. It's the rule of thumb, literally, to point your thumb in the direction of the current. I sent you a
I'm on
picture in the
mute.
chat.
Yeah. I was gonna
If
say
you
it
wanna-
is. It's an engineering. It's a everyday thing to use, that if you're in the field or that, to remember what direction or whatever. Look at your hand, put your thumb up, and again, just an easy way to look at it and your visual reminder. You don't want to mess that up.
So that picture in the chat, I had to laugh at it because, yeah, with the globe, they're trying to teach you about the Earth's electromagnetic field, right? And so we got the whole right-hand rule, but do you see this electromagnetic field twisting whatsoever? Where is the right-hand rule with this? Like, yeah, so
Well,
not
this
only
doesn't
wrong
even
about-
look like the Earth's magnetic field anyway. None of this is right.
Yeah.
No, that's right. They don't have the bottom, and none of the stuff that they show and the way that they do the field matches up with how we read them. Again, it's just because again, when you look at the declination pattern, you can't really get the sense of it on a ball, especially not when they call it a dipole, and that's not what our features look like at all. So yeah.
It's just funny just how messed up their lives are.
I love
So
how they
right here, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love how they pretend that a magnetic field generated from spinning molten metal in an earth in a lower mantle is going to generate the same type of magnetic field that a bar magnet would. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So here you go, Kyle. You have the flow through the wires going that way, and his thumb is pointing that way. And then the magnetic field is oscillating in this direction, the same as the curl in your fingers. That's the right-hand rule. So it's not just the thumb pointing, it's also the curl of the fingers. Your fingertips will be pointing in the direction that the magnetic field is flowing.
Yeah. So my biggest curiosity here is with our compasses, why don't they all point east then instead of pointing instead of north? You said it just follows that whole thing, but I'm kind of looking at this cross section that you set up with your thing before, and that kind of represents a plane, like the plane that we live on. So that's where my little bit of confusion is kind of stepping into play.
Yeah, it's like this magnetic field, I believe, is more the etheric, like that 15 degree per hour rotation that we have, that we don't pick that up on our compasses. But I believe that is the magnetic field's flow this way, as it's just part of, since the electricity is going this way, there has to be a magnetic field going around this way. But the magnetic field we read on our compasses is much stronger. That's the one that has to do with here on Earth. There's something odd is creating our magnetic field. To get a quadrupole like the way we have it, it's not just a bar magnet or something like that. It can't be, or else we would see it on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, and we don't have like the center of. I guess that would be the major difference between your setup and the world we live in. Would be you've got an electric current going right through the North Pole on your setup, and we don't really see that
Well,
same.
the actual electric current is everywhere we can measure. So it's
Yeah, it's
not just
everywhere. So
happening at the
that's
North Pole and then right
yeah,
around the North Pole this is happening. This current is everywhere, all
yeah.
the way.
So
It's like a
that's the
faucet.
major difference between
Yeah,
this
you
experiment.
can't think of it as a wire and we're measuring what's going on outside the wire when the wire encompasses our whole known realm.
Yeah,
Like we are one slice of that wire pretty much.
yeah,
And we can't go outside the wire to measure what that magnetic field is doing out there.
hmm
So yeah, it's hard to it'll click in with you. But yeah, it's hard
yeah,
to imagine because you want to think of it as just a wire running through the North Pole and then this would be going on around it when actually the edge of the wire is, we're in that whole electric field still.
yeah.
So yeah, you'd have to step outside of that main electric field to then measure this one going around so much. That's
Yeah,
why I
it's
think
still
it's
kind of like
so
an
weak.
interesting
Yeah, it's very, very
complication I
weak.
never thought about before. But that's the neat thing about doing this is we're kind of looking for those additional factors that a lot of people just don't really take into consideration.
Now this one, actually, I'm going to save this one for after this one. This is a video I did. It's just 3 minutes, and it's going to kind of put some more pictures into it and add this to the place we live. And might explain some things like what's helping propel the stars and the sun and the moon, and why do these things all move in the same direction, and why is that coincide with the right hand rule. So here we go. We're going to play this one real quick.
Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. This is Good Times for All, or Zachary Zabal if you prefer. In this video, we will take a look at the right-hand rule and our realm. To start off, I would like to say that there are 3 different types of right-hand rule when it comes to the dance we observe between electricity and magnetism. They describe how the two manipulate each other when certain circumstances are presented. We will focus on Ampere's right-hand rule, as it is the one that most relates to this place we live in my opinion. It was discovered that once a current of electricity starts flowing through a wire, a rotating magnetic field will surround it. As Ampere described it, he used the face of a clock for his analogy. Imagine you are the electricity traveling through a wire and flowing directly towards the center of a clock. The magnetic field will rotate the same direction as the hands of the clock, or clockwise. Interestingly enough, you can use your right hand with your thumb pointing out and your finger making a fist, similar to the international sign for hitchhiking. Your thumb points in the same direction as the electricity is flowing, and your fingers curve in the same path that the magnetic field rotates around that current. So if we take what we know about electricity and magnetism and look for similarities in the world around us, some things start lining up quite nicely. We know that we have a potential difference of electricity between the sky above and the ground below. We have a positive above and a negative charge below our feet. This means we would take our right hand and point it down towards the ground, as that is the way the current is flowing. We can look up into the sky at any given moment and draw similarities with the magnetic rotation to the luminaries above. All motion in the sky moves from east to west, or in the same direction that your fingers are circling when pointing your right thumb down towards the earth. Now, I am not saying that this is absolutely how the right-hand rule applies to the world around us, but these are just a few connections I have made while looking into the laws of electricity. This place is a puzzle beyond no other, and I feel this is a piece that should not be overlooked while trying to put it all together. This is Good Times for All here, signing out, as always.
That's interesting. I'm thinking about that whole thing because I was, as you were doing that, I was thinking about the sun and the stars and like, does that all apply to the right hand rule? And then you mentioned that, and so like, okay, so why would that apply to the sun and stars, but not our compasses? And that's kind of one of those mind-boggling things that I have got to look into now. And so, yeah, this is really fascinating.
There's different parts of the magnetic field, right? There's paramagnetism, diamagnetism, and then ferromagnetism. And so the ferromagnetism is the metal sticking to metal.
Yeah, and so that would be kind of our compasses. They work according to ferromagnetism,
Right.
magnetism, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And
so,
the other, yeah, there's another step too that we're missing on the obvious on this. We're looking at all of this in a simple dipole action, which is just a dipole, a north and a south pole, and we're doing it. What we read in the middle of our map is a quadrupole. It does not read as a dipole, it reads as a quadrupole. But the thing about a quadrupole is a quadrupole still creates a single toroid field with the same properties, but it leaves it off into the four series that act the way that our ferrocell or our declination map does. In other words, the pattern of the quadrupole would create a single toroid field and does. And you can create that again, the quadrupole, with either like an anti-Helmholtz coil configuration or with different magnetic and electric properties. There's a few different ways, and that's a show to it also, to show all of the different ways to get to the quadrupole pattern that I found, and that is the pattern in the middle, the center of our map, undeniably. Been putting it out for 8 years now, and nobody has been able to look at it and tell me anything otherwise. And it was something again 8 years ago. I'm like, ring magnet, no. Why are there 4 clovers on the ferrocell? And why does that look just like a quadrupole, which it is?
yeah.
So when you do that and you put the pieces together, so we're simplifying, we're teaching you the right hand rule, but we're teaching you again in steps like a baby. You have to learn it on a dipole before you jump you to quadrupole.
Yeah.
But again, when you're looking at the actual magnetics of this realm, we don't show a dipole. We show again a quadrupole in the center. I have one dipole to one side, and I have the other things going off of the map where they would have to come together again. But again, in reality, what we're looking at doesn't look anything like just a single dipole, nor could a dipole create that pattern, a single one. It's impossible in reality.
So what's the connection between this and magnetic drift? Is there a connection there?
No, I think your connection with the magnetic drift is that we're in a dynamic, it's in a dynamic, your combination with it there is when we take it out, you're looking at your right hand rule as a static thing and a dipole. When you put it into a system, like I'm talking that we have more than one, we have a couple of dipoles that you see expressed in a quadrupole in the middle, and you have a system going, your drift, I believe, is created by a system working. In other words, it's something that is a effect of a system as opposed to a single unit, which again, the way they explain our Earth is a single dipole that has anomalies going through it, doesn't account for those things.
So with the rod example, that was a dipole, correct? It just had a pole at the top and a pole at the bottom, and the Earth as we know it is not a dipole. And so that's going to be the part where that experiment doesn't quite reflect kind of the world as we know it.
Correct.
Okay.
And Zach, if you could pull up, does anybody have like, is it hard for you to put up that cloverleaf pattern or declination map and just point to the center and say?
You could probably pull it up a lot easier.
Okay.
I know you have the pictures.
Oh,
I
do. I just wish I had all the technology now because I really want to see how the same experiment works on a quadrupole. That's the one with the four-leaf. That's what you call it, right? It's when you have the four-leaf clover at the top, that's called the quadrupole compared to a dipole.
Well, here, hold on. Let's open a folder that's got the.
Because if it
Okay,
works
let's.
differently with a quadrupole, that could explain a lot of my
It would, and I think that
confusion.
that should do it.
Does the right hand rule still apply to a quadrupole?
Yes, it does. It does when you do it. It does, and again, it brings some nuances and it brings some different qualities to it and some better qualities to it than even on the dipole that really appeared on our realm that would make more sense. But the right hand rule does apply to it, and the nuances that we see with it are things that we readily see and would be very helpful to have. Things that here, let's do this one screen.
I'm loving every bit of this because it's the exact deprogramming that I need.
Okay.
Because I just pointed at that whole thing with the globe and how it's taking like so much of what I understood about electromagnetism and just kind of tossing it out the window. That's not how it is. It's not all this vertical stuff. It's actually twisting. And so, yeah, that is just like big news flash. So I'm really talkative. That's why. Yeah, I've never heard of this before.
Okay, so if you're looking at my screen, Kyle, do you see dipole here, quadrupole here, and octupole here?
Yes.
And your mechanisms of it. Your quadrupole, and it's really easy to see your dipole count. Your loops here, 1, 2, dipole. Quadrupole, 1, 2, 3, 4, quadrupole. Octupole, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on your actions, your octupole. So in other words, you're going to look at, and you can arrange magnets this way. You can take like magnets going up and down and take like 8 magnets and create this, or you could take like a single magnet and put a plus minus here, a plus minus here, another magnet, a minus plus, and a minus plus. Do you see how you could arrange that? If you put a reader on top of it, you would see this pattern, just like with a quadrupole, plus, minus, minus, plus. If you do it, you will see this pattern, or just a single plus minus, that pattern. Does that make sense so far?
Well, right now I'm seeing arrows that are going inward on the
Don't worry.
I'm also seeing...
You're doing the current and doing that. Don't go there yet. Follow first of all what I'm saying and the number and where you're seeing what the plus and the minus and the loops created and the pattern created. Because if you took magnets and set them up in this configuration and dropped iron filings on it, you would get this pattern. If you put it in a ferrocell, you would get this pattern in a magnetic reading. And I've done this on show for people many times, and I could probably look. I think I've got my film over at your house, Karen. So I might not be able to do it here on there. But if you look at that and you look at our declination map, you'll notice that our declination map, look in the center of this. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your classic quadrupole. This is a dipole over here. You also have your
interesting how it's both. I never quite caught that before, how it's both a dipole and a quadrupole on the same map.
On the same map. So you have one dipole here. Your red and your blue are coming together. They come together simply. It's a dipole. This is your dipole pattern. Now, if it connects over here, which it should over here, your red and blue coming together, you would call that a dipole loop, by the way. And your dipole loop has, it's interesting because I can show you the symbol for that too. It looks like an L with an X and an I. So it has some esoteric meaning to it.
There's another dipole on the other side in the
red and blue
that we don't know about.
Right. Red and blue they don't know how to just wander off. Magnetic is a reciprocal system. It doesn't know how to just end. It can only feed into itself. So your red and blue have to come together somewhere that's not on our map. It can't just go off this way. That does not work magnetically. That's not how magnets work. They do come together. And just because we don't have ocean or things drawn on it doesn't mean that it's not there, because this little green line has got to end somewhere. It's the only thing it knows how to do is go go somewhere and come together with the red and the blue. Now,
That's another mind-blowing thing for me, because I've
Okay.
only seen this, I've always looked at this as a 2-point system. I've never seen a 3-point system. So that
No.
that really expands my mind there a lot.
Now, what's more mind-blowing than that, Kyle, is ways to get this pattern. One of the things we learned along the way, and this was something I learned about halfway down the way. We are going way off track. but
Sorry.
you sent me there.
Sorry. I'm so thirsty
Okay,
for knowledge.
ways to get this pattern. You could picture little bar magnets, right? So
Mhm.
picture bar magnets. You could put them up and down, have 4 of them, have one up, one down, one up, one down, and from the top sprinkle magnet or sprinkle filings over that piece of paper you have on the top, and you could get it. You could also like lay one across here and one across here with a plus minus, minus plus, sprinkle it and get that pattern. You could also run coil electricity in something called the anti-Helmholtz coil configuration and get this pattern. Or what we learned is you could see how you have a dipole here. If you take a dipole here and you take another dipole over here and you hold them correctly, position them, it will actually create a quadrupole all by itself magnetically in counter space in the middle. So that would bring some context into if you place the pillars correctly, the stairway would appear. The pattern could be created itself, quite possibly by just that other dipole on the other side would create the quadrupole in the middle. Now that quadrupole in the middle, when you talk about, and I'm saying this would have a single toroid on it, as far as that or the motion going, it also has neat qualities. It's something they use at CERN and everything else. By doing it in this quadrupole as opposed to dipole configuration, you add into it a field stabilizer, a field extender, and a field equalizer. So on your toroid pattern and everything, by having it, building it, by putting it together as a quadrupole instead of a dipole, your toroid has, in other words, it takes all the fields and it stabilizes it, equalizes them, and it extends it. So there's a lot of intelligence in along with the quadrupole. Not my intelligence. I didn't make the quadrupole. I didn't draw it in the middle of the map. I didn't do any of the work that's, in other words, the scientists in that have found what the magic of the quadrupole is, and they employ it all of the time at CERN and in all kinds of technology. It's what they use in their MRIs and their CAT scans and all of the different things. This configuration, the quadrupole, is brilliant because again, it stabilizes, it equalizes, and it extends. It creates a stable field, right? I didn't discover it or make it up, but it is sitting right here in the middle. This is the map that we fly by. This is the declination map. So it's there. I didn't put it there. It's there. I'm just saying magnetically, this is what we fly by, what we travel and breach reality by. And this pattern has got a lot of intelligence to it.
Yeah, when the main streamers go ahead and talk about how the South Pole has like 4, there's actually not just one South Pole, but like 4 different South Poles or something like that. All of a sudden now this is sounding a lot more interesting.
Right.
And I can understand a little bit more why they would claim that. Especially,
that's why they have to come up with all of the different things, because they have readings and the different things all over. You add a degaussing line around this. And again, when you do this with the counter space by the magnets only know how to go to the center, which is the other piece of it by putting a line of. So yeah,
it's not just the globe model that's claiming there's just one, or there's more than one South Pole, but the flat Earth model, as you're pointing out here with the other dipole that's off screen here, there's another South Pole right there also.
I think so. I think that our measurements and our data point very, very strongly to it, and it would be again a probability in the way, or when we talk about theoretical things. No, I'm not going and I'm not measuring and I'm not testing it, but the red and the blue only know how to go together magnetically. You do test the magnetics and they don't know how to not come together. Again, it's think about how the system feeds into each other.
Yeah.
It's
and
a
it
logical
does
conclusion.
conclusion, right?
Yeah.
It's a logical conclusion of it because it has no other choice but to complete itself. It can't wander.
And I've
That's
actually seen magnetic field charts that were from kind of like that, but from the South Pole was at the center. And instead of just having the one there and the other one where you couldn't see it, they had two dipoles that were like right next to each other, like this, that weren't really interacting with each other. You would think it would have created a quadrupole, but no, they have it. So instead of seeing that one where it shows just the one dipole there and then you assume there's another one off the map over here,
Hmm.
it showed one, like, yeah, one not too far away from the other one. It was like right there on the bottom
Right,
of
and a
their
bridge.
globe. Yeah. So
so.
yeah,
Are
no,
those
they need
They
two
need it.
poles. That's
They
why they
need
put
it
it
both.
on that
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
What
in
you're
this new
looking at,
picture you're showing here? That is that two dipoles and a quadrupole in the center.
that is, and that's Zach and me doing it. We wrapped copper around it to augment the thing, and you have again your dipole patterns. This is nothing fancy. This is again a homemade parasol. Even thank you, Zach. You're amazing and brilliant. And again, here's your dipole. Here's your dipole. We didn't do this. We just took the picture. Here's your quadrupole. You can do it at home too. Quadrupole creates itself in the middle by having two dipoles when you position them correctly. And again, you'll recognize your dipole field again right here. Dipole, dipole, quadrupole. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Interesting.
So that is again, when we say we test these things, we really do test these things.
Okay, we're getting kind of
Okay,
out there
we're
now.
off a track. So
Sorry about that. I'm not
No
trying to
worries,
get
no
off track.
worries.
Cammie's gonna stop sharing, and yeah, you got us way off a topic, Kyle. But it was
I'm
fun.
sorry.
You can never
No,
get
the
Cammie
people
to
in
talk
chat
about
love it.
magnets.
They
Oh,
say
do
you
they?
ask all these questions that make us really break it down a little bit more and explain it. And they said, I saw someone say, if it wasn't for that, they'd probably just move along after saying it, and I wouldn't understand anything that they said.
Okay.
So no,
I'm glad I'm
yeah, I
helpful.
love it.
I'm
Yeah,
glad I'm helpful.
yeah, absolutely.
Because
All
I think
right.
this really is exciting stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of the stuff here I've never heard before. So yeah, it just what?
Ask Zach and ask Karen both. Warning Kyle and Skylar. If you get me talking about magnets and stuff, it's really hard to shut me up. I do become I'm talking and I can't shut up. So
All right.
all
Well,
right.
I think that's going to do it for the right-hand rule. Now remember, if you would like to look into them, there's other types of hand rules. There's the left-hand rule and this and that, and it gets more into electron flow and things like that. So I kind of stick away from it. I'm more of a natural entropy type of, zetetic. I look at it. High pressure always goes to low pressure. The low pressure isn't replacing the high pressure over here. The water isn't going up the spout,
Oh,
you
it's so
know.
tantalizing. There, I want to do all these experiments and find out more.
Spider.
But yeah, so that's the right-hand rule. It's real
I'll play
easy.
more
You
with
just
the compasses and see if I can affect the direction of them with different poles here.
Oh yeah, just go to wires in your house. A wire that's plugged into the wall. If something's running, and go hold it up right next to that wire, and that compass is going to move. There's electricity flowing right there. You don't even need like a special setup. You can do it. Yeah, it's neat. Now there's electricity flowing in both directions there usually. So
Oh yeah, because of AC current kind of a thing. So,
yeah,
yeah, that might mess things up a little bit. So
yeah. There's another rule for that. So yeah,
Yeah.
and they there's actually a right-hand rule that looks kind of like this. It's not just this. It's
kind of like doing both at the same time, which is going to be tough. So.
yeah.
In this one, yeah.
Yeah. But we just did the basic one. But before we get out of here, I would like to bring up Flat Oktoberfest, baby. I love this part. I saved it, so when I scroll it down, it's gonna jump out at me. Ah! I love that.
Yeah, Flatoberfest is in Las Vegas this year, y'all. So October 21st and 22nd, 2023. And you can see there the hours are 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. both days. And there are all of the speakers there listed. I've got two people from the UK, Mark Devlin and Dave Murphy. And of course, Mark Sargent will be there, and Austin Whitsitt, Jaron Campanella, Jason Lindgren, Ben Balderson, and Amanda Vollmer, and also Greg Reese, who's not in that picture. I need to make a new picture that has Greg Reese in it. And of course, Chief Crow playing music, and
It's gonna be
hosted
awesome.
by Rick Hummer.
Love
And
Rick.
yeah, it's
Rick
going to be.
Hummer. Yeah, Rick Hummer was also at our speaker's house in Canada. He is the most fun person in the world. I just have to tell you, the most fun. He puts the energy in the fun to whatever he does. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, anybody who was at any of the FEICs, Rick hosted those. And so this is his first time being a part of one of my conferences, so it's going to be a blast.
Love him.
Yeah, he's really, really a lot of fun and a great guy. So,
And there is a Telegram group. If you're looking for, help getting there, carpooling, stuff like that, what is it?
Flat,
Flatoberfest?
yeah, it's just Flatoberfest carpool and info group, I guess. If you click on that picture, if you go to the website and you click on that little poker chip with the Flatoberfest logo on it, it'll take you to the Telegram chat. And there's people in there, talking about what they're going to do, places to eat, carpooling, all that kind of stuff.
Caravan it out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have the tickets for Zach and I are confirmed. We are flying out and we'll be in Thursday afternoon and are leaving Monday evening. So we are confirmed. We are booked and we're going to Vegas, baby. I'm excited.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Are we dropping the link into the chat? Because I don't have it open right now.
Oh, yes, I can.
I can drop that.
I could probably open and do it too.
I'm
But yeah,
sorry, I
tickets
should
are
be
on
all over
sale and coming up really, really quickly.
Yes, tickets are on sale. There you go. You already got it in there. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait. First time going to Vegas. And we're actually flying out of the West Coast, so this will be my first time seeing the Pacific Ocean.
October's a nice time to be out there. It's not too cold and not too hot. So
I don't plan on leaving the airport. It's just a layover. I think that's on our way back home.
That's on our way back. Yeah, we have this real practical trip on our way back. We are going to Las Vegas and we are going to Los Angeles. This is the red-eye flight. We'll be flying all night long. We are going from Vegas to Los Angeles to Charlotte and then getting on this plane from Charlotte to Greenville. So we have quite the, we get to go everywhere that night. We will almost, there's a good chance we'll get to see both oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, depending on Charlotte, if we circle enough to see the ocean there. But I thought about adding, there was another flight that cost the same amount of money that had a third layover in Newark. And it's like, well, it almost left and took off and landed at about the same time. And the main difference was the length of the layovers. And it's like, well, we could take this and say that we saw both oceans, but I don't think it's worth it to go to Newark to have, change planes again.
No.
But yeah, crazy.
Well, all right, everybody, that's going to do it.
No, it's not going to do it. There was something else I wanted to cover. I wanted Miss Karen was on Crow this week, talking about crystals and something that has the topic a special place in my heart. And I was hoping she could even play Crow's intro in it and drop the links for everybody, because if there is a podcast that you want to listen to or take the time and do, my highest recommendation would be this one. I loved it. I think it would be mandatory if it was up to me. But Karen, But it's not. But it's definitely enjoyable. And Karen, if you would like, just play the intro. I was so again pleased with this show and this, and I think everybody should listen to it and go over and give her a shout out.
Oh, you got it. You might want to skip the song. The intro song is like almost a minute.
I love the intro, but
Oh,
I
you could
will.
play it too if you want. I don't care.
We'll play the last few seconds of it.
About all my events.
Face the enemy of knowing.
All right, now welcome to Crow 777 Radio. This is episode 527. Jason Lingren is with me, as is Karen B. We're going to talk about crystals, and actually, this is near and dear to my heart. I have used crystals over the last, 4 or 5 years to be one component in reprinting my house, which we'll talk about as we get in. When I first set out to reimprint my house, I was dubious. I wasn't sure that I had the chops or if it could even be done. Well, cut to the chase, it can be done, and I have done it. But with that, we'll jump in. Welcome, Jason.
And a hot Louisiana morning it is.
Anything you want to add, or shall we crystallize?
Let's make it crystal clear.
Welcome, Karen B.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Well, Karen, before we begin, let's get the contact info out there.
The best way to find me is to go to flatearthfestivals.com or flattoberfest.com. If you go to those URLs, you can find the information about all my events. There's a menu item that says Contact Karen B, and you can click there, and I have links to all my channels on Rockfin, Twitch, Rumble, all those different places, because YouTube is up and down.
All right, well, here we be. How about if we start this way? I will state where my idea about crystals changed. And that was when I first heard an old occulted description of how life came to be. And it goes like this. The most basic and most stationary form of life is crystals. Therefore, they were first in our world. They were followed by the plant kingdom, and that can be tracked back as there are minerals that make up crystals in plants. Next came the animal kingdom. That can be tracked back as there are plant matter and minerals and animals. Next along the line comes us, and that can be tracked back in the same way. All the previous kingdoms can be found in us. And in that, I went back and I began to consider, are crystals alive? And the more that I looked at it, I finally realized, how could it be that we ever decided that they were not? With that, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Crystals are...
Well said.
She's going to say that they are definitely alive, and that should be temptation to lead you over to this podcast that she's dropping into the chat. The whole show is fascinating. They're going to cover crystals. They even but they go into resonance, harmony, and a lot of different areas too. Even they even talk about the harmony of wool and cotton in their
I'm
show. You
curious
get
if the right-hand rule applies to crystals as well, because they can put out electromagnetic fields, right?
yes.
So
Mhm.
yeah, that probably apply there as well. There,
They will, and when we get into that, and when we start getting into incoherent magnetism, what you're saying is going to start really coming into play too. Those are great questions, Kyle.
so,
I am
yeah,
gonna
there's so
drop
much to
the
find
link.
out. There's so much to look into here. So yeah, just tantalizing. Just always leaving me one more.
Skylar, did we let you talk at all tonight?
He's on mute.
He's
Nope.
muted still. He's still muted.
Wow. Have I been muted the whole show?
I think so.
Oh my God. God,
Oh my God.
the whole time.
It happened.
Oh my God.
But it has been a pretty weird show. StreamYard's actually been disconnecting my camera
I
repeatedly.
saw that. Yeah, you were. I saw you type that in chat. That's crazy.
But what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Man.
what are you gonna do?
I had tons of zingers, some of the best jokes you've ever, never heard.
The best jokes you
yeah.
didn't hear.
Yeah, but
Were you just funny as all get out during the whole show and we didn't know it?
yeah, but I can't remember any of it. So what can you do?
That's great.
Oh, good stuff. Well, all right, everybody, we are going to get out of here.
Thank you for
Does
all the new
anybody
members.
have, thank you, yeah, so much for all the new members. I'm not sure why people can't accept members. I turned on my membership thing and clicked on the little box and everything, and it never gave me the option to accept a membership. So I'm not sure how it all works. So we'll get it down here in the coming weeks. But does anybody have anything that they'd like to share about the upcoming week?
Shout out for Karen B's secondary channel, her backup channel on unveiling this unveiling this realm. Just because her main channel's under fire right now, so you got to go check out her shows on her secondary channel there, which is awesome.
Nice, absolutely. Skylar, any crazy stuff coming up this week you would like people to know about?
The crazy, the unexpected, but yet somehow always happening. True Earth debates. We're going to be doing that tomorrow night as usual. Doing the TikTok trenches as well as the open panel, and hopefully we can get something of substance. Really threw a wrench in Taboo Conspiracy did with how the pilot ended the globe. It's been my new favorite evidence to present going forward, and there's been nobody with a good answer. Right now, I actually have somebody who's claiming to be neutral on the TikTok, who's like going back and checking the math on the degrees. And he claims to have put on some program to map it out to track that the amount of displacement with the stars is actually 62 degrees, which is really close to the 65 degrees that's expected for the time lapse. And I'm like, okay, great. So if the all 62 degrees is right there, then obviously there was no upward shift accounted for, so we can move on. Globe is done. But,
So
yeah, it's
this Taboo Conspiracy video that you're talking about, that's the one where you're looking at star trails on a plane flight. Is that correct?
yeah, and they do it
Okay.
both. They do it going north to south and south to north, both ways. And in neither demonstration do you see the frame of rotation shift upwards. And it's supposed to be a lot too. Like I did the math on it. We're looking at about 28 degrees on the low end, which means the amount of shift from the before and after, about half of that should have been shifted upwards. And we don't see any of that at all. So,
and the entire star trail footage was over an extended period of time. It's not just like a 5-minute thing.
that's like it's at least a 4-hour time lapse.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, you'd think after 4 hours it'd be some kind of a shift, but yeah, if the Earth was a globe, but yeah, when there's not, yeah, that's some pretty significant stuff there. And I kind of wonder about refraction and all that. I've got a lot of questions with that too. So
Celestial refraction, as Glober Whitsitt put it, where it happens at the height of commercial airlines. Super funny ad hoc explanation. If you want to see what Globers are actually saying about it, besides Bob the Science Guy, because his explanation was pretty sad, then definitely join us. I believe we're going to do it at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard. Be here or be Sphere. And then, of course, join us for GLOBEBUSTERS on Sunday.
yeah, my big thing with that is I look at the sun and how the sun tends to, we view that at different angles depending on where we are. And so the farther south we go, the further down the angle is going to be, right? And so, yeah, I kind of, if stars don't have that same effect, man, that's the big mystery to me.
It means to me that the stars are much further away. And here's the thing that I've also been contemplating. Since it is true that we see in hyperbolic geometry, right? And this isn't taken into account in any of the like spherical observations that we have. Wouldn't it make more sense that the stars are on a plane, on a shelf above us, as opposed to being a encrusted or in a half circle that's surrounding the Earth? That's just how I'm visualizing it.
I want to play.
Yeah, when is this going to be up and running, man?
Yeah. On that
I had
one.
to start over.
Yeah.
This is a new one.
I like the setup though. It looks really good. It's very instantly recognizable as a flat Earth map there.
Troubling. I have thoughts on that, and I've had thoughts a long time on that. My thoughts have always been like on the stars. It would make most sense to me optically. And again, this is just I've modeled out different ways of doing it. It would make most sense if they were on a flat plane, and then remember, our magnetic fields are going to circle them optically. That is on your dipole and your quadrupole in the middle, and all of this. One of the things that you're going to get is optical circling happening too. So the field will have a effect on how we see them in a way, but it would work best if they were again on the flat plane, and our magnetic shield is one of the filters we're looking through.
Yeah, it gets really messy when you try to input actual physical spherical geometry on top of the hyperbolic space as well as magnetic shifting. It's none of that is taken into account in the globe.
No, they don't.
That's for
No,
sure.
they don't. No, they try to
Yeah.
keep it as clean and isolated as much as possible. As soon as you start compounding these effects, and again, they're there. They can't not be there. If they're going to give us a magnetic field, which they tell us we can measure, and we have scientists from all over the world, which, by the way, the word world just means the age of man. It's a German based word, but all over the world, people are taking data readings, and I can't believe we have equipment. I don't think there's a big conspiracy that we're lying about taking the data readings and that our equipment is not taking readings. I think it all has to do with how we're applying it. And if they say that all of these people are taking magnetic field readings, why again are they not accounting that in with their optics? Because they know magnetic fields have an effect on optics. So again, pick and choose. They pick and choose and say, no, we leave everything off, and here it's working like this for us, and here's our angles. But again,
It's negligible.
it's negligible, and there are nuances in reality. So yeah,
That looks cool, Zach.
cool as all get out, Zach.
Very good.
Coming along.
Is that bigger than the first one?
No,
Looks-
it's half the size.
Oh,
With
Yeah,
this,
I had-
Hopefully it'll run
Looks good,
better
though.
that way.
with a map like this, it's like more believable that the ancient peoples wandered across land bridges to populate all of the world.
I know. I'd love to lower the water level. Like, let's see, bloop, and actually have like show what it would have looked like back in the day when the water level was lower.
This
Oh.
this reminds me of the Pangea debunk.
Yeah.
How can you have Pangea, right, when all of this stuff is like it's in the ground? It's not like
I
they're
never thought about that before because it's already connected. It's just a matter of the water level.
Yep. So yeah, coming along.
That's totally different perspective right there.
Well, alrighty, everybody. That's going to do it for tonight's episode of GLOBEBUSTERS Tech. That was the right-hand rule. Yeah, it's scalable. Electricity and magnetism are scalable. So if you can do it on a very small scale, it should be working that same way on a large scale. And that's how we get, well, at least the way I see the magnetic field is flowing the same direction they claim, the ether is flowing. And our electric field is pointing down. The stars, sun, and moon, and all that stuff are going around in that same rotation as it should be. It's, it just locks in for me. It just makes sense.
it
I'm
fits.
curious how the globe is going to explain that whole thing and why compasses don't point
Yeah, they
east.
can't. They
Yeah.
can't. It's, yeah.
And that's why they show their messed up magnetic fields that do not spin. And so, yeah.
And
It's-
why they
it's-
don't
it's
teach
just
you anything
blatantly-
about it in school, and why
Yeah.
they don't,
Yeah. So if we could just, I've got to
like
prop
wait a
that
second.
up and kind of put that on a pedestal and make it look nice, because it's a really, really significant discovery that you're talking about here with the right hand rule, and just like, puts the globe in the trash again.
Again, right.
Yeah.
Well,
So, yeah.
alrighty.
The more you learn, the more it does it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, another connection. Well, all right. I hope you all enjoyed the show. We will be back here again next week, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your evening. Wow, I'm getting tired. Remember, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.